me. So with this test stream, I'm just basically looking at how the footage would look if I was to, of course, go live with this phone. Um, so by the grace of our Lord, the Lord has procured for us another means to be able to share the gospel. And I find this footage to be very, very clear and very, very nice, very, very cheap. You know what I'm talking about, man. You can see man's hairline and everything. It's insane. What I'm gonna do is actually jump on my side on my phone and see how it looks as well. But yeah, if people want to come up and they want to have a conversation, let me know. Um, this will be the phone I'll be predominantly using for any live streams I do, especially my walking streams. Wow. Yeah, the footage is so clear. It's almost disturbing. It's disturbing. Yeah, the footage is clear. The footage is really clear. Look at that.
Are you not gonna do live on TikTok?
I might do a live on TikTok. I might do that as well.
Yeah.
The issue with my camera on TikTok is it's not as good as this camera. This camera's nice, man. Look at that. You can see, man, in HD, 3D, whatever, man. You know what I mean? You're seeing man's mash up headpiece right now. I don't know. I need to sort that out. I need to sort that out, man. Yeah, a bit too much 4D, PD, and all that thing. Yeah. By the way, peace and blessings. So yeah, as you guys probably have seen, the video of my discussion with Saros has appeared. Right now, I have some issues with what happened during that discussion. First of all, lovely guy Saros. I don't have an issue with him, but there were things that were cut out that were very much important. Now, I was told by Saros behind the scenes that there would be some stuff cut out that was pertaining to things like Young Bob and stuff like that, because I said that Young Bob was racist during the conversation, which is fair enough, of course. For fair use. You can't just share people business and call people racist on lives like that. It is what it is. But there was actually a part of it in which I preached the gospel of saving grace. I preached the gospel to people. I looked at the camera. I was asked by him during this conversation, is anything you want to say to the audience? And I said that the gospel is this: you're saved by Christ's righteousness, not your own. I explained that Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy are false. Let me take back my bloody, because I don't know what you're doing. I explained that, you were saved by grace through faith. I explained all of that. And you know what? It wasn't in the footage. It wasn't in the footage. It was bad. Now, don't get me wrong, I was glad to share my side of the story. But I feel like, the pinnacle of that side of that story was going to be, first of all, what I said about my wife. Why was that removed? I said that I loved Amy, and I said that me and Amy were doing evangelism in Rome, in the Eastern Orthodox church places. We were going to London, etc., etc. I'd actually said that in the video, and it wasn't uploaded. So I don't know whether Soros will actually do a video where he will just like chop it up and maybe, put it all together and actually add the bits that were removed, because I think they were important. Now, he was saying in his comment, "Oh, I'm not here to censor people."
Keep it off, by the way, guys. Otherwise, it reflects the phone.
Yeah, you know, I know that, of course, he had to. He couldn't. He's saying to me, he couldn't. He doesn't want to censor. He wants people to have their say. But at the end of the day, what am I saying that's controversial? The gospel is Christ's righteousness saves us. What is controversial about that? I'm more than convinced that Revelation TV is not of Christ. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Revelation TV, because I don't know why that was removed. That was the gospel of saving grace, and you removed it. You can have your opinions. You can even be funded by Roman Catholics, but you can't deny the truth. You can't deny the truth. The truth will out, whether you like it or not. And I think it's disgusting that was removed. It was the gospel of saving grace, and it was removed. And yes, I am angry, but you know what is what is. The Lord is glorified. That's all that matters. And if anybody sees my testimony and hears the words of Christ our Lord and becomes born again, then all glory to Jesus Christ. But I am just really peeved off at the amount of sissified, false Christianity that doesn't want to stand against ecumenism. I'm done with it. We're at full war with these people, and I'm outnumbered, and I don't care. There you go, Bob. That's your muscular Christianity. You see, it's easy to be muscular when you've got friends. It's not easy to do so when you've got nobody. I'm on my own in this. It's only me and Amy. You know what I mean? And yes, if it means us against the world, then so be it. Because, you know, as Athanasius says, Athanasius of Alexandria, great theologian, as he says, if the world is against the gospel, I am against the world. If the world is against God, I am against the world. I don't want to stand with these losers. I don't want to stand with these heretics. I don't want to be loved by them. But how dare you cut that footage where I'm preaching the gospel saving grace? I wasn't even speaking about anybody in particular. Ridiculous. What can I do? What can I do? All right. You know, the video is up now on Revelation TV. It's also up on Sir Rose's channel. You know, I don't have any hatred for Sir Rose personally. But what I do have hatred for is this damn Christian Illuminati BS. You want to censor me? You won't get the chance. We're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. This doesn't end. Do you not understand? You know what I mean? They speak in hushed tones behind my back. They reason their wild theories beyond themselves because they're beside themselves and they think that Christ is with them. You're whores. All of you who don't want to share the gospel, all of you want to lie about Christ, God, Christ our Lord, and his gospel, the fact that his righteousness saves us. All of you are whores. Classified asks me, why am I so angry? I am upset because of the lies that have been told about me. But more important, the fact that people want to censor me. And not even censor me because I'm speaking about other people, which I'm fine about, but censoring the gospel of saving grace. You see, I as a Christian believe that in order to be Christian, you have to be born again. To be born again is to receive Christ in your heart. It's by his faith we are saved, through grace, not of our own works, lest a man should boast. And I'm called controversial because I stand for the truth, then so be I am. Let it go down in the history books. All of this nonsense they make up about us, they've been doing it for centuries. You know, I actually think it may be true of even the church fathers. The victors always win the historical books. You know, imagine you had church fathers like Irenaeus of Lyons, you know, Clement of Rome, you know, all preaching things that are similar to the church's doctrines. And then you have these heretics like John of Damascus and others flying off the handle saying we're now going to adore iconography. Tough work. No offense, classified. I don't care whether you think I'm BS or not. I don't care whether you think God is BS, Christ is Lord. You know, I simply don't care about that stuff. That doesn't bother me. But you know, I find it, you know, abhorrent when people deny the words of our Lord. And I want to go to the book of Galatians, right? You know, I know it's a late night, you know what I mean? How you doing, Jay-Z? How you doing, Jay-Z1 or what? Yeah, how you doing, man? I want to go to the book of Galatians. Just want to read this from Paul, right? This is what Paul says. You know, they zealously court you, but for no good. This is Galatians chapter 4, verses 17. They zealously court you, but for no good. Yes, they want to exclude you, that you may be zealous for them. But it is a good thing to be zealous in a good thing, always. And not only when I'm present with you. My little children, for whom I've labored in birth again, until Christ is formed with you, I would like to be present with you now to change my tone, for I have doubts about you. Tell me, you who desire to be under the law, do you not hear the law? For it is written that Abraham had 2 sons. Abraham had 2 sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael was the son, of course, of the bondwoman, the slave woman. Isaac was the son of the free woman. But only the son of the free woman shall be redeemed. Only the son of the free woman has the covenant. Only the son of the free woman, only the child of freedom shall enter into freedom. Let's read Galatians chapter 5, verses 4. And I testify again to every man who becomes circumcised that he's a debtor to keep the whole law. You have become estranged from Christ. You who have attempted to be justified by the law, you have fallen from grace. If the Roman Catholic Church is teaching things like salvations by faith, baptism, and the keeping of the Ten Commandments, and your church is teaching those things, that is a false church. You who are attempting to be justified by the law, you have fallen from grace. You understand? You've fallen from grace. You see? So it's no light thing that we preach the gospel to all men because that's what Christ has called us to do. You know, it's a shame. It really is a shame. You know, I have seldom worked with other Christians because of this, and I refuse to now. I utterly refuse. I'm done. Sorry. You know, outside of just a casual, and when I say casual, I say of course in the context of a sort of more secular work setting, which you're forced to do whether you like it or not, right? Outside of that, I'm not doing this with Christians anymore. I give up because every time I do, they all are compromisers. I've questioned myself whether or not my position is true. Every time I read this Bible, I'm seeing that doctrine matters, and every time I look at this world, I'm seeing people pervert it. I wonder what kind of letter Paul would write to these churches. I don't know. I didn't say I was the boss, nor did I say I didn't say I was the boss of who's all not Christian. God is, Brenda, and God has given us His word. And it's not about who is not or not Christian. Christians can still compromise. That's not what I'm talking about here. You're not tracking. You don't even know what I'm talking about. Why are you adding your 2 pence? Yeah, Brenda, just stop talking, dude. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're an atheist who denies God. You deny existence itself. Like, there's nothing that I need to say to you. No, you need to be born again. It's not about getting born and nothing happen. Amy's telling me to go and use the Wi-Fi. I'll do that in a bit, Amy. I want to stress this. As an atheist, as an agnostic, as somebody who denies the truth of reality, you have no grounds to even suggest that logic or reason or intellect actually exist in your worldview and aren't just delusions. For example, it's the famous Gregor Barnson who notes in his works, and I've been listening to his lectures as well recently as well. He has a great book on theonomy as well, if you've ever read that. But I mean, Gregor Barnson notes that when it comes to unity, how do you define unity with an atheist worldview? How are you able to do it? How can you unify things like, for example, contingent states, ever-changing things, but uniformity existing as well? How do you know that these things truly exist in your worldview? And how do you account for these things existing in your worldview? You assume that your mind is giving you a valid interpretation of the universe. How do you justify that? God isn't playing hide and seek. He doesn't need to. You know what I mean? Rest assured, Light Free, you're the one who's going to want to hide from him. You can't justify these things. It's very clear that an atheist can't. To this day, when it comes to the transcendental argument from God, no atheist has been able to deal with it. I mean, famously, Richard Dawkins ran away from it and said it was stupid. Not really an argument. During the time of Gregor Barnson, right? Obviously, Gregor Barnson died, and he left behind what was known as the Barnson Seminary. I've never been to it, obviously, because I'm British and I've never lived in the US. But Gregor Barnson was a famous. Should I call him a pastor? He was a pastor technically for some years. He also was a teacher as well as a scholar or theologian. I could call him that, And he sort of promulgated this argument known as the transcendental argument for God from a man by the name of Cornelius Van Til, who was the first proponent of this. I've actually got Van Til's book on the bottom of my if I can get it up. I've got Van Til's book on the bottom of my shelf here. Somewhere here. There we go. So this is Van Til's book. It's called The Defense of the Christian Faith. This is a second edition copy, by the way. My sister got this for me because I asked her for it. You know what I mean? That was it. It was around 30 quid. But this literally is a second edition. Pretty much. It was written in around the 1960s, 1950s. As a second edition. You're not gonna find that stuff. I don't even know where the first editions are. Um Hold on. First of all, yeah, I know that Barnes's lectures are all over the internet. Obviously, like, Apologia Radio done a great job of actually sourcing out Barnes's lectures and actually making something called known as Barnes and Uni. So yeah, I'm aware of that. I didn't say it wasn't. As for the refutations, they're dry. I don't respect any refutations. They're stupid. The atheist has to assume that their mind is giving them a valid interpretation of the universe in order to interpret anything. So the grounds for interpretation starting off are already assumed by the atheists that can't ground rationality. And that's the whole point that not Barton, but what Van Til's making in this book is that you can't ground rationality in your worldview. So but if you can't ground rationality in your worldview, it doesn't make sense to then make rational arguments, because in order to do so, and Barton says this famously, if you want to play the game of argumentation, you're going to be assuming that my God exists in order to do so. You know what I mean? If you want to play the game of debating, you're going to be assuming that my God exists in order to do so, because you're assuming transcendentals. You're assuming that these words have meaning. You're assuming identity over time, unity of objects, and unity of presuppositions. You're assuming all these things occur, but without any evidence of it. That wasn't my reply either, Brenda. Learn to track. My reply wasn't, nah, I don't even speak like that. My reply was, you have been refuted multiple times. But I mean, also my reply was, yes, again, you can't ground in your worldview logic, reason, morality, sense data, identity over time. How do you ground these things? So I'm inviting you to have a conversation on it, and you're telling me, we have refuted your claim. That's not an argument. Okay, so Bonnie Green. There's a Bonnie Green now? I mean, you guys are scaring me. It scares me to think that God is... Yeah, I mean, if you think God is this and that, that's up to you. I don't think that God is in any way hiding. I think that God has a plan. In fact, if you know anything about the understanding of classical theology that we hold to, you would understand that God, in fact, is interacting in the universe as we speak. God isn't hiding anywhere. Like even the Bible says, for since the beginning of creation, his invisible attributes have clearly been seen through what has been made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Well, I don't think evil exists in an atheist worldview. You're going to have to ground that in, some sort of argumentation that has predicates for logic, reason, and morality in your worldview. How can you say anything's evil? When you say there's evil in the world, what are you referring to? A social morality, universal, general, random, empirical morality. Like, what are you referring to? I don't understand. Atheists make it up as they go along because they can't really deal with rationality in their worldview. You say it's not possible. How do you know it's not possible? Sorry. And when you say humans don't fully believe in God, how do you know that? You're making a lot of assumptions, mate. Are you all right, son? You're a bit drunk. Okay, I forgot your name, but how about you review a critique of Presup and show how it's wrong? Well, I can't do that right now because, again, I'm a bit of a... what's the term that the New Agers give? Boomer or something? I mean, obviously I'm 31, but I mean, I'm a bit too... I'm just not tech savvy to be able to show you on the screen. I wish I could be able to do that, actually. But yeah, maybe one day I'll do a stream on StreamYard where I basically just run through a pre-sup argument. I know there's this dude called Pine Tree or Pinewood or whatever the flip his name is. I think he tried to attack it. And his reasoning was just dollard. You know what I mean? Yeah, in the future, of course I can do that. I don't mind. I haven't really done an atheist stream in a while. I might do an atheist stream where I'm actually running through a few arguments. But one great debate you should look up is Barnson versus Stein. That debate just completely finishes atheism. I'm sorry, atheism has no grounds. You know what I mean? Gordon Stein's arguments appeals to emotion. How could God create a world in which there was evil, suffering, torture, etc., etc.? And when I look at it, I'm just like, yeah, but why ought there be a world that is bereft of this stuff in an atheist worldview? Why ought anybody function as if they're decent human beings? Why ought this? Why ought that? Why, there's so much oughts missing that don't make any sense in atheism. I actually just made an argument. And listen, Brenda, stop typing. Listen, bro, what's going on? Mixed 999. William Lane Craig, top 3 apologists. I saw there was a debate between William Lane Craig and some famous dude debater. I can't remember. I don't really get into the realm of debating, but I can debate, sure. But yeah, if you're talking about WLC, yeah, WLC is up there, sure. But he hates the transcendental argument for God. So I mean, low tier. I mean, if you're talking about up there throughout all time, yeah, I'd say Greg Barnes is up there when it comes to argumentation. His strength is atheism. His strength is atheism. His strength is not so much Roman Catholicism. He tried to attack it, completely flummoxed, but his strength is definitely atheism. Brenda, you're just crying. I don't know what this is. Sorry, I did make an argument. I completely flummox you to the point where you can't make an argument against what I've said. You've told me now to appeal to Pinewood or whatever. Go and seek out some stupid atheist and hear what he has to say and then refute it. Why not make an argument for your position as to how you are going to be able to determine logic, facts, and morality in your worldview? Why not make a worldview? I don't do this premise. I don't have to do a syllogism. We're having a conversation. Do you require a syllogism every time you ask somebody about the time? What's the first premise? Time is something that is consistent and exists. Oh man, Brenda. Somebody says to Brenda to set. Let's not Mixie. Let's not tell Brenda to STFU, please. Let's not do that. Okay. You know what I mean? I'm not telling this person to, go and STFU. I'm not telling this person to do that. So you shouldn't be saying that. It's not befitting of Christ to be telling somebody to STFU. Okay, let's not do that. All right. Yeah, at the end of the day, she hasn't been rude to me. She is just saying that I don't know how to argue, which is, I mean, it's kind of rude, but it's not warranting a STFU at this moment in time. So I mean, let's just keep it 100, man. You understand what I'm saying. Yes, you are. I mean, premise is required if you're making an argument. Not necessarily, no. I mean, if I'm making an argument that, Lipton iced tea is a good drink to have, on a Saturday evening, I simply don't have to form a syllogism. I could just say, well, the reason why I think it's good is because of A and B. No, I mean, given that, yeah, I mean, so first of all, I mean, if I'm gonna premise distinction, all that stuff, I mean, it's boring. I don't care. It's just long. All I'm saying is that grounds for logic, morality, and existence are predicated upon the being of God. Now you have to pose an argument as to how that is not going to be the case. No, you're saying this, but there's no evidence that a premise is required. Like, if I'm making an argument, I don't always need to form a syllogism. That's just not how argumentation works. If I say to you, you stole my orange, I don't need to make a syllogism of orangeness is, like this. Oranges are fruits, right? And fruits have orange taste. Premise 2, you were in my room. Premise 3, therefore you stole my orange out of my room. I don't need to do that. I'm sorry. I'm just, I mean, in casual parlance with, human beings, you don't need to be engaging in syllogisms. It's just stupid. Okay, I'm not interested in that, right? So either you're going to deal with it or not. I'm making the claim, now counteract the claim. I'm making the claim that atheism cannot account for logic, reason, morality, and sense data. Now if you ask me what do I mean about those things, then I'll explain it to you. But I mean, other than that, don't ask me to form a syllogism. It's stupid. No, what do you mean? You don't even know if logic exists. How do you know logic exists? You're assuming that's how logic works. How do you know that logic is uniform? When you say logic, what are you referring to? Your own subjective experience of logic? I could say, well, unless you've got grounds to be able to determine that logic exists, then that logic preference is a preference, and I don't have to accept it. I can say I disagree. You know what I mean? In an atheist worldview, you could just do that. In fact, in an atheist worldview, you could just say I disagree with logic. The law of non-contradiction does not exist in an atheist worldview. um Mixie Night, Mixie Night, no, stop swearing, bro. What the Oh man, you guys like the footage so far? I mean, Brenda, I didn't say I disagree, but that wasn't really me formulating an argument either. You didn't actually bring any argument against the proposition I'd made. So until you're able to do that, then we're gonna have a conversation with that. I understand you're working on it, bro. We're all a work in progress. I understand what's going on, man. But can you see the footage? The thing is, this footage now is Bombo Clot for Society Movement. Yep, the fool says in his heart there is no God. That's exactly it. Brenda, now you're just not making an argument. So I want you to make an argument. So Journey to Coding says that I'm an arse wiper. Now, last time I checked Journey to Coding, the only arse I'm wiping is mine, dude. Unless you don't do that, and that's why you're making this claim that I'm an arse wiper. Because you don't wipe your arse, you walk around stinking of crap. But that's up to you. Like, if you want rodents to crawl up there, that's all glory to, what I mean? Whatever the arse you're on. So yeah, Brenda, when normally when we're formulating arguments, or normally when we're trying to attack a proposition, right? Let's say dude makes X proposition, right? Like if an atheist says to me, look, God does not exist, and I asked him, well, how do you know what existence is? I don't expect the atheist to be like, oh well, well, you said the proposition. I'm like, no, we've got to be able to make and formulate arguments. I mean, I did go live earlier on, by the way, on StreamYard, and I invited people up, Brenda. I did do that. You can actually see it on the video before this one. Tomorrow I'm going to be, by the grace of God, doing a bit of, work for the Lord. So yeah, but maybe I'll go live on Monday, and if I'm around on Monday, you can jump on, say what you got to say. Sorry, you're not making any sense, Journey to Coding. I hope your coding career collapses, you weirdo. What's what's going on? Just casual hating on your boy. Here's what it is. Here's what it is. Yeah, Brenda, we can have a conversation. I don't mind. At the end of the day, I prefer to have a cordial conversation with people. Whereas, what I mean, you seem to be, of course, dealing with the arguments. Even though you are not. But I mean, at least you're not cussing me out. So I'm all good for that. I'm not going to cuss you out or do any of that stuff. So it's all good. Yeah, Brenda, we get that you don't sit around waiting for me to go live. That's all right. That's okay. Like, we all don't do that. All I'm saying is there are times when I do go live. So, hit the old follow or whatever it is on YouTube. I think it's subscribe. Hit that, and you'll be notified when I do go live next. In regards to a StreamYard live. But I'm sort of consistent with my timings here. I generally would do it around the times of 9 o'clock PM UK time, or as early as 12. Bit consistent. It's better to rebuke wise people than mockers. Of course, rebuke the wise and they will learn and have understanding. Rebuke a mocker and he won't learn nothing. God created the devil, so God has. Yeah, I mean, so sorry, no, my friend. God created the devil, sure, but he didn't create evil. That's where you're confusing two aspects of Christianity. Why do I hate atheism? It's because it's demonic. It's the denial of the divine. It's the denial of God's truth. It's the denial of the transcendental who created us in his image and seeks to have a loving union with us. It's the denial of God's, truth. Like, we can't live our lives hating God and expect for God to love us back, and that's the issue with a lot of atheists, you know. And the atheists will say, well, I tried to ask God, why? No, the atheists are suppressing the truth in all unrighteousness. Maybe because of their own sins. Maybe because they can't get behind a God who doesn't agree with their own autonomy. Maybe because in general, they don't feel like their questions are being asked. But, the atheist wants to live a life apart from God. And so God grants it to them. But, at the same time, they are fools for just suggesting that things like the pen simply come out of nowhere. The devil chose to be evil. I don't know what you're getting at here. I'm not scared of death. What are you talking about? Well, I'm sorry. There's a lot of confusion here. I used to be an atheist. I actually have my testimony out there. I have my testimony out there on Revelation TV. I was filmed in a studio. Go and watch it, like free. I used to be an atheist. I used to deny God's existence. What made me change? Well, the thing is, it was just asking myself some questions. What is life? Why am I here? I used to hate God and think God was the cause of all evil. Now I realize that evil is not God. God is good. Human beings are evil. You know, and the reason why I believe this is because ultimately it has to be a predicate of what evil is. There has to be a predicate of what good is. You know, I believe God created the world with love and purpose, but human beings deny purpose and love, and so they receive in themselves condemnation. I mean, well, when people see, when here's the interesting thing: when people say, "I need evidence of this," what are they assuming? Well, they're assuming that they are the standard of information. They're assuming that God somehow has to come to their level and meet with them in order to be known to the universe. They are simply assuming that their minds are giving them a valid interpretation. You see, the atheist assumes. The atheist wakes up assuming. You know, the atheist assumes what is known as the uniformity of nature. For example, to say that the laws of gravity will not change. How do you know that? Sure, I mean, I could say, in my worldview, I could throw this many times. It'll always maintain this sort of falling pattern. Because in my worldview, God's mind is going to be the standard of all transcendentals. God's mind is going to be grounding things like gravity, things like, kinetic energy. Everything in existence is going to be grounded in the being of God. But, within an atheist worldview, you can't tell me that in the future, the laws of gravity will always remain the same because your worldview doesn't account for there being uniformity. And what that means is continuity, consistency over time. How do you reconcile that in your worldview? How do you reconcile that? And so that's what this is when I asked the atheist the big questions that I had to ask myself that ultimately led to me becoming a Christian. Now, yeah, obviously there was a supernatural element where God gave me his Holy Spirit, and through that I felt a loving warmth. Now my testimony is out there. It's been uploaded. It's on Pray Psalms House TV. So go ahead and watch that. Uh, Humans didn't create God, no. And when you say humans created anything, when you say God is created, how do you know you're not a brain in a vat? How do you know your mind exists? How do you know that you are truly seeing me right now? I've formulated this argument that I learned from an individual by the name of Redefined Living. He got it from Darth Dawkins, and this argument goes like this, right? You know, it's called the Fight Club argument, right? In Fight Club, there's an individual by the name of Tyler Durden. He is the imaginary friend of another dude, who is the main character. Now, the main character does not know this is an imaginary friend. He thinks that Tyler Durden is real. How do you know that I am not Tyler Durden in your life? Like free. How do you know that? How do you know that I'm not just your imaginary friend? How do you know you're actually physically seeing me? I could be a hologram. I could be made up by the CIA. How do you know that? How do you know that I exist? How do you know you exist? How do you know that when you go, see your family members, how do you know they exist if you've got any family members? How do you know that the people you're walking past in the middle of the street aren't just lines of code? Like this is the Matrix. How do you know that? So the big question is like, is our whole experience illusory? Well, I would say in an atheist worldview, that's very much a possibility because there is no grounding, there's no transcendentals. It's just your subjective experience and whatever that is, telling you things that exist. And so, the atheist worldview for me asks too much questions but doesn't answer any questions. Doesn't answer anything. There is this great theologian, you know, his name's Anthony Flew. I mean, he wasn't a theologian, he became a deist. He used to be a I've got him on my no, that's not him. I've got him somewhere around here. Basically, Anthony Flew wrote a book called There Is a God. There we go. And Anthony Flew was an atheist. He denied God's existence. What do you think made him believe that God exists? Or the lack of evidence for the opposite view? When he decided to go away from just assuming his own presuppositions, but actually started to challenge his own worldview, he became a deist. You know, he has a book called There Is a God. Well, it's called, yeah, I mean, it's the book's called There Is a God. How the world's most notorious atheist changed his mind. This atheist debated WLC himself, William Lane Craig. So if you really want to know, if you're really honest with yourself, if you're really seeking to know God, then there's ways to know God. You know, I'm not saying I agree with Anthony's position during his final time. I I really don't believe that deism is true. I think, you know, the final conclusion is Christianity. Blood clot. When did you become a Christian, mate? Well, I mean, I put that all online. It's all on my testimony, which is on Revelation TV right now, so you can go ahead and watch that. Um, there's no one evidence that God does not exist. Well, clearly, right? When people say God does not exist, they're assuming a lot of things, right? What are they assuming? Well, first of all, they're assuming to know what the word exist means. If they're assuming to know what the word exist means, you have to ask them, how do you know you exist? Or how do you know what existence is? When you say exist, you're talking about, you know, a presupposition you hold to about reality. That what you're viewing is what reality is. And you only know 1% of it. Science can only tell you 5% of the universe. How do you know anything about that? So when you say God does not exist, that's a faith-based claim without any evidence. Nicaea 325 formulated religion. Brother, you're stupid, cuz. You know what I mean? I thought the atheist, you know, I thought the Bible said, you know, the fool says in his heart there is no God. You've surpassed the level of fool to that idiot, bro. Man said 329 was when when Christianity was created. Oh man, honestly, you know what I mean? Not even, oh man, honestly, not even Matt Dillahunty would make such a crap argument. Not even Dillahunty would make. You're an embarrassment to atheism. Are we in the little season? What are you talking about? Sorry. Yeah. Come on, bro. Make better arguments, man. That was weak. Do you even know what Nicaea 325 was about? You didn't realize there were Christians before 325 Nicaea? Oh, oh, oh. You heard of Tertullian? Oh, Tertullian. Oh. What about Clement of Rome? Oh. What about the Didache? Oh. You're going to be surprised when you read all those sources, dog. I don't think you are going to read them, dude. But I mean, you'll be very surprised to know that there were Christians before 325 Nicaea. You'll also be surprised to know that 325 Nicaea had nothing to do with creating Christianity. 325 Nicaea was a council that was created by Alexander of Alexandria. Sorry, it's Alexander of Alexandria. I'm saying these words wrong. My apologies. Okay, Alexander of Alexandria, and of course Athanasius of Alexandria, against a man by the name of Arius. Now, Arius taught not that Jesus didn't exist, not that Jesus Christ was. You know, he taught that Jesus Christ was divine, but that he was created divine. That was the whole contention. Had nothing to do with creating the Bible, had nothing to do with creating the religion of Christianity, which evidently existed, according to earlier documents, well before 325 Nicaea, in a council from the 4th century. So, I mean, honestly, you're gonna skip all of the evidence and just run with some gay argument. I don't know what to say to you. You know what I mean? I don't know what to say to you. Get lost. And notice he's been real quiet since this dropped. Paul invented. Okay, so all of a sudden, Paul invented Christianity. You see, he's not making his mind up. He's not making his mind up. Okay, so it's either like Paul invented Christianity, but Paul, according to scholars like Bart Ehrman and Gerd Ludemann, who, by the way, believe that Jesus Christ existed, and by the way, believe the testimony, and by the way, will say that the Gospels were written around 70 AD. Or if you believe Paul invented Christianity around that time. So there's a difference between 70 AD and 325 AD, right? You do realize there's a difference between these two. That 325 AD is not the same year or even time frame as 70 AD. So which one? Are you going to pick one? You're an absolute idiot. A carpenter wrote nothing down. You're a blood clot idiot, man. Get lost. Don't tell me no nonsense, bro. Peter wrote the Gospel of John. Furkan, evidence, please. Can we get some evidence? Can we? Jesus could not write. Okay, evidence. Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I want to see the evidence. You're telling me your opinion. And this is what atheists do. They tell us their fairy tales and expect us to believe it. I mean, you're the same idiots that believe we come from monkeys, bro. I mean, I'm not going to rely upon anything you say. There's no evidence. It literally says that at the end of the John. But prove it. Prove it says it at the end of the John. At the end of John. Prove at the end of John that it says, quote, Peter wrote the book of John. What do you mean read? I've read it more times than you've had hot dinners, dude. What are you talking about? Show me. You made the claim. The burden of proof is on you to show me. Okay, so we have a book here known as the Bible. We have crack open the book of John. You know, I'm going to get the book of John and we're going to see whether it says, quote, that Peter wrote the book of John. Let's read the final chapter. In fact, we'll read the final verse of the final chapter of John's Gospel. Where's the evidence? And there were many things that Jesus did, which, if they were written one by one, I suppose even the book itself could not contain the books that would be written. Amen. Peter's name is not mentioned in verse 25. So let's see where Peter's name is mentioned. Verse 20. Then Peter turning around saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following, who also leaned on his breast at the supper and said, Lord, who is the one who betrays you? Peter, seeing him, said to Jesus, but Lord, what about this man? Jesus said to him, if I will that he remain till I come, what is that to you? Follow me. Then this saying went among the brethren that this disciple would not yet die. Yet Jesus did not say to him that he would not die, but if I will that he remain till I come, what is it to you? This is the disciple who testifies of these things and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. So evidently, the disciple that Peter was speaking about, the disciple that Jesus Christ loved, can't be Peter. Because Peter says, and quote, you know, who also leaned on his breast, said, Lord, who is the one who betrays you? Speaking of John the Baptist. Sorry, not John the Baptist, John the Evangelist, my bad. I'm tired, that's why I'm slurring my speech, man. So evidently, it was going to be John who was the author of John. John was the one, if you read John 13, who was leaning on the breast or the chest of Jesus Christ. Wah, wah. So next time you come in my live, show evidence, bro. Get G-checked. Is it the new international version? Get G-checked with your damn versions, bro. Get G-checked, bro. Get clocked. Light free. You know what? You know what is stupid about your stupidity? Is that to this day you've not proven any of it. So I'm waiting for you to prove your worldview. You're just telling me your business. That's all you're telling me. You're just telling me your opinion. You know. But that's the funny thing is about opinions is that they don't mean anything to me. They mean something to you, but they don't mean anything to me. Light free, what is it to you what I do, bro? No offense. What is it to you? Light free, I'm surprised that you can operate a phone. I'm surprised you're able to do basic grammatics. Honestly, I'm surprised. They're talking about holding down a job. I mean, who's hiring your ass? Who's hiring your ass? Because you're a dullard. You thought that 325 was the creation of Christianity, brother. You're stupid. You know what I mean? I've you know, honestly, Muslims ain't that stupid. Now you're just reaching for it, bro. Devil, you not believe in the devil? Okay, bro. Now my man believes in the devil. Okay, cool. Here's what, isn't it? He's saying the devil makes time for idle hands, so he believes in the devil, but all of a sudden Christianity is not true. You're making sense, bruv. You're making sense, idiot. Anyway. You know what I mean? So now that I know you believe in the devil, who created the devil? Let's see if we go that far. Because we're dealing with stupid. Yeah, I mean, this is what I mean. He's just so stupid, bro. He's a dullard, man. Get lost, get G-check, bro. I ain't even talking to you. You're stupid, bro. So he affirms the devil exists, but he doesn't want to answer whether God created the devil. I don't know. Who created the devil? Did the devil come from nowhere? Yeah. The Lord has already given me the truth for Khan, and that is not Islam. Islam is false. But anyway, I was just test streaming this to see the camera footage. you know, it's showing a bit too much of my blemishes, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? I've always looked like this, man. I got nonsense on my eyes. I don't know where I was. So any questions before I duck out? By the way, Brenda will be going live on I'll be going live hopefully on Monday by the Lord's will. I'll probably be a bit more chipper because I can't speak, man. Man's teeth look yellow right now. What a raw. Hey, nah, man. I don't know whether there's something going in with this lighting here. My teeth, my teeth look yellow, bro. Oh my days, man. It is what it is. Anyway, any last questions? Any last words before I duck out? Anybody got anything to say? Okay, cool. Anything to say? No? Hello. Get in my car. I have begun one. I am the Cyclops. I look like something like Wallace and Gromit, mate. It's flipping weird, man. You know what I mean? What is that? Yeah, would you guys just straight watch a stream where I'm just doing this? I don't know. I'm just messing around with this stuff. I don't know what's going on right now. Ah, yes. I have 4 eyes. Yes. Yep, and that's my face of disgust. Anyway, yeah. So anybody got a question? Going once. Yeah, I mean, we had the old disco stuff. It is what it is, mate. It's just, yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, the going rate is an halfpence and £3 a pop. If you ask the governor, he'll be nice to you. I look like that is wild, man. Oh my days, I look crap. Oh man, and not even my usual claps off. This is off. You know what I mean? I look like I'm wilding out as well, like I'm about to crash out or something. I don't know what's going on here. Which Bible do I like best? Well, I look like young Bob actually. Which Bible do I like best? I like the NKJV actually. The NKJV is a great version. You know. Yeah, so the NKJV version is a great version. But yeah, I mean, generally, ESV, NIV, these are good Bibles, but the reason why I read NKJV is just simply because of the cadence, the tone. I like that stuff, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'll read that stuff all the time. It is what it is. I look clapped, man. Oh, man. I know, I'm Steve from Bright Ass. You ordered a fridge freezer from us last weekend. Did you like it back, sir? Smeagol! Smeagol! Smeagol with my precious! Oh, man. I look like I've seen some intolerable nonsense. Like some heinous nonsense. That's what I look like I've seen, man. Yeah, I mean. But yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. You know, this is the face I make every time I see another horrible argument from an atheist. Yeah. Mm. Anyway, uh, well, it's late anyway. I need to head off. My bad. I need to head off to find out. Yeah. I can't do super that. I'm playing paper. What are you talking about? My friend, you don't even know what you're talking about. Do you know what pit is for, by the way? Like, I know you're a bit stupid. And you know, you don't do a job, Pip. You know, so your life, you don't do a job. If I call you Pip from now on, you don't do a job like free. Because you know what I mean. I don't think anybody should hire you. You're just backward. You know what I mean. Oh, Exodon, you know that's hilarious. Because last time I checked, young rider, bro, get off live, bro. Um, yeah, get off my live, bro. Light free, get G checked. You know what I mean. You're crappy Pip. You don't even know what Pip is, bro. Like you're stupid. It's people like you, honestly, that keep voting for like the crappiest people known to mankind. You know, it's people like you who shouldn't even vote anymore, man. Honestly. Um, I don't like the dude from the Thriller video. What's his name? Mike Jackson. Hey, how is going? Okay, man. How is it going? Um, yeah. So basically, what's happened here is I've formulated with a cat. So yeah, I've decided to live my life as a cat with cat's eyes. It just is what it is, man. It is what it is. Mike Jackson. Yeah, that's his name. Mike Jackson. And I mean, good old Mike Jackson. What's the classics that he used to sing? Yeah, I mean, Bat It. Yeah, I mean, like you remember the song Bat It? Bat It, Bat It. No one wants to be defeated in a good old game of hockey. You know, Mike Jackson, a genius of his time. It's a shame he died of lung cancer, man. It's insane. All that smoking, I suppose. You know what I mean, Mike Jackson. Uh, I remember, hearing his album. What was it called again? Filler. Yeah, I mean Filler. Great album, Filler. This is Filler Night. You know what I mean? And you could see him, filling up bags of, cookie dough and placing it on conveyor belts to give to the homeless. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's a bit too late for me, unfortunately. This is what happens when you're up past your bedtime. It just is what it is. I mean, Mike Jackson, Mike Jones as well. Mike Jackson, Mike Jones. You know what I mean, there's what it is. Anyway, I'm gonna duck out. I probably will hide this because I don't want this coming out on my channel. But anyways,